What is the battle of Ain Jalut, and what will make you understand what is the battle of Ain Jalut? Wallahi, brothers and sisters, the greatest calamity that the Ummah has ever faced after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, political calamity, was the invasion of Genghis Khan, the invasion of the Mongols. This was the greatest political tragedy that has ever happened. And I have said before that it is in fact even worse than what happened in World War I and the Sykes-Picot Agreement and the breaking up of the Ummah. The Mongol invasion was even worse than what happened 100 years ago. In the Mongol invasion, and again, time is limited and the time is almost up already. In the Mongol invasion, Genghis Khan started off from Mongolia. He united his tribes and he started fighting westward. And what is west of Mongolia? Samarkand. So he entered Samarkand himself and he stomped into the masjid and he desecrated the masjid and he told the Muslims, and this is literally recorded in the books of history, that I am your God's punishment on you because you have abandoned your religion. This is Genghis Khan in the masjid of Samarkand, on the mimbar, and he told the Muslims, you didn't act according to your faith. And the story is long because they had cheated him, they had been rude and crude, they had killed one of his emissaries, and this is un-Islamic and it's not even allowed according to the laws of the land. They had stolen and cheated from Genghis Khan, otherwise he would never have invaded. So he invaded them and he destroyed one of the mightiest civilizations, Samarkand, Bukhara, Tashkent, and he said to them, because you were not faithful to your God has sent me to punish you. And he said this in the masjid of Samarkand. But that was just the beginning. His children and his grandchildren after him, for the next 100 years, they ransacked and ravaged the Muslim land. From Afghanistan, onto Iran, onto Iraq. In 1256, they surrounded Baghdad, the capital of the Abbasid Empire. And after a long siege and a ruse and a tactic that they used, they then conquered Baghdad. And one of the greatest massacres in human history before World War I, World War II, when atomic bombs were invented, one of the greatest massacres of human history is the rape of Baghdad in 1256, when Genghis Khan's grandson, Hulaku Khan, this is his grandson destroyed the city of Baghdad, the greatest city of humanity at that time. Got rid of over 1 million books, and it is said over 1 million human beings were massacred, one head after another chopped off, until finally, and the Abbasid Khalifas watching this, until finally the last man to die was the Abbasid Khalifa and his own families. But that wasn't the end of it. That was the beginning of the end as well. They continued marching westward, on to Damascus, on to Syria, on to Palestine, and they made their way all the way to Egypt. Pause here. Think, from Mongolia to Egypt. This is the Mongol invasion. And they have ravaged and ransacked the entire Muslim world. Muslim historians at the time literally thought this is Qiyamah. They thought this is Ya'juj and Ma'juj. They thought the sun is going to rise tomorrow from the west. That's it. They could not imagine a future. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed a small dynasty that was hitherto unknown. Nobody had heard of them, called the Mamluks. They were ruling over a small area of Egypt. And Allah blessed the Mamluks to stand up against a group of people whom the Muslims superstitiously believed they weren't even human. Muslims began to believe that the Mongols were not human beings. They're Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Because not a single civilization, the Christians, because they invaded Europe as well, the Muslims, nobody had defeated the Mongols. Yet, the Muslim general stood up, and that famous general, of course, Baybars was one of them, and Qutuz was another, and these were, of course, Mamluks. They were Muslims from a Turkish civilization, but of course they were proud Muslims. They stood up against one of the generals of Hulaku Khan, and they fought him in the plains of Ain Jalut. It is said this is where Goliath himself basically fought against David, and Goliath took place over there. So it's called Ain Jalut, and Allah knows best. So they stood up in that small principality of Ain Jalut, and they, for the first time in the history of the Mongols, inflicted a decisive blow on the Mongol army. And once again, this took place 25th of Ramadan in the year 658 Hijrah. And they never recovered after that. This invasion was such a shock to the Mongols that they stopped their conquest and they seceded back. And in fact, their rulers that they had put in Syria and in other places, amazingly, and this can only come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the very descendants of Genghis Khan eventually converted to Islam, and they started the Ilkhanid dynasty, and they started the Mughals of India. All of these, the Mughals are the Mongols from the same bloodline. So the very descendants of Genghis Khan, they tried to conquer Islam. Islam ended up conquering them, and they became rulers for Islam. But the decisive battle that began the turn was the battle of Ain Jalut, once again in the month of Ramadan.
How is Chinggis Khan a Khan without being a Muslim? The term Khan is entirely unrelated to religion. The Mongols first used it when it was assigned to Temujin, later Chinggis Khan, after he successfully united the Mongolian tribes in 13th century. However, the term had been used by many other civilizations before this to denote a chief or ruler. Its origins have nothing to do with Islam. It was used to refer to a chief or emperor by nomadic civilizations long before the coming of Islam. It wasn't even an originally Arabic term. Long after Chinggis Khan, however, the term was connected to Islam when it was used by the Muslim rulers of the Russian Khanate of the Golden Horde. Chinggis was a Tenrist, not a Muslim. Chinggis Khan, meaning universal ruler, it was simply a title of power and rank.